Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
Forever change the way you sleep with the softest 100% organic cotton bedding from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with blankets, duvets, and sheets that feel breathable to sleep in. You'll experience pure comfort on night one and feel your bedding get softer with every wash. Take 20% off your first order during Boll & Branch's annual spring event at bollandbranch.com with code WONDERY20. Limited time only. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Episode 2 of The Messenger, the Rachel Cancer Scam. Previously on The Messenger, you heard the words of Dr. Holt in a message that I received after Rachel was pronounced dead. You also heard more about Rachel's game and how she plays her game. In between seasons, I tracked down Rachel's first husband, Todd. If you recall, Rachel told me that she had left Todd at the altar in Hawaii, never actually married him. Of course, that was another lie. Rachel did marry Todd when she was just 20 years old and living in Houston. When I reached out to Todd, I wasn't sure what to expect. Would he return my call? Would he want to talk about something that happened over 25 years ago? I didn't know. And to my surprise, Todd was open to speaking with me. He was agreeable to being on the podcast and had a change of mind, but I do have permission to share his story and his words. And what he shared with me was heartbreaking. During our conversations, Todd said something that stuck with me. After I showed him the photoshopped hospital pictures, after the initial introduction, the fake ultrasound and other pieces of evidence that Rachel had sent to me, his first response was, "I'm so sorry that you went through this." Todd knew exactly what it was like to be caught in Rachel's web of lies. What I'd come to learn is that he still carries the scars from that relationship. He shared with me that during his marriage to Rachel, she'd periodically disappear, sometimes for days at a time. This, as you'll hear as the season goes on, is a common theme with Rachel. And one of those times that she disappeared with Todd, when she finally came home, Rachel told him that she'd been kidnapped and trafficked. He said she came home looking like she had been beaten up. Todd was a cop at the time, did a bunch of digging into it with a friend of his that worked at the time for the FBI. They obviously found no evidence of anything that resembled the truth in that story. Todd said his parents didn't believe him initially when he tried to explain what was happening with Rachel. He had to show them irrefutable evidence before they came around. Think about how awful that must have been. Rachel's lies were so convincing that even Todd's parents had been fooled. Todd shared with me at one point that he had never been able to have a normal relationship after Rachel. Issues with trust and countless other scars had left their mark. And I did something with Todd that I didn't do with anyone else. I sent him all 12 episodes of the podcast before it was released. I wanted him to get an understanding of the scope of the scams that Rachel was running on people that date back to before the time they were together. Todd finished the podcast and sent me the following text. "I don't think we ever completely get over these things. But tonight, after finishing your podcast, I told my partner that I'm incredibly grateful to have her in my life and that I love her. And I'm glad that we somehow both made it through terrible twists and turns and that we found each other. It's weird how life is and how things can change. I read his words and I was moved. It strengthened my resolve. It further defined my sense of purpose. It's tough for men to share, to be vulnerable, to show emotion beyond basic emotions, to go deep. And Todd's message did touch me. I think he realized that he wasn't in the dark or alone either. I found several more men that Rachel was involved with. A man named Mike. He will also join us on this podcast. He was involved with her around 2016, at the time Rachel claimed that she was married to Bobby. Funny thing about Mike, he was also love-bombed by Rachel. He almost got sucked into her web, and he was lucky enough to get out unscathed. Now, Rachel did run her fake pregnancy scam on him as well. She sent him love notes, pictures, and her signature move was the ultrasound, that fake ultrasound of twins. And you'll hear how he found out that ultrasound was fake. Mike and I spoke. He's still in Houston, and you'll hear him on a future episode. I posted a couple moments from my discussion with him on our social media if you'd like to see and hear a little bit of that before it gets released in the podcast. The other man I found is a man named Brad. Brad was Rachel's first boyfriend. Rachel also used her signature move with the ultrasound on Brad. That was when Rachel was just 19 in 1997, right out of high school. That ultrasound was an ultrasound that Rachel was actually connected to this time. That ultrasound belonged to her sister Sherry, and it was actually Sherry's twins. Rachel took the ultrasound out of Sherry's baby book and absconded with it. She literally tore Sherry's name and information off the top and handed it to Brad. She used that ultrasound to coerce Brad to move from Mauriceville, where he and Rachel grew up, to Houston, which is what they did. Brad shared a story with me that at one point, while they were still in Mauriceville, Rachel's mom called him, said she had no idea where Rachel was. Brad said he hadn't seen her, but he went out looking for her. He had an idea where his girl was. And he found her at a party. Found her exiting a room with another man. She claimed that she had been assaulted, but begged him not to do anything about it. Is anyone surprised by this? Your boyfriend catches you cheating. A quick and easy response is to be the victim. Again, we look at the easy way, that slippery slope, and the harder way, which is the truth. And clearly, the truth was a difficult road for Rachel to find her way to. Her inner moral GPS was and remains still out of calibration. Rachel and Brad didn't make it, and Rachel jumped right into the relationship with Todd. You did hear me talk about Bobby last season. Rachel crafted that tale about being married to Bobby and so much more. I found out more about Bobby in between seasons. We actually talked. And I'll tell you that Todd shared with me that he caught Rachel and Bobby. And I'll touch more on that, some additional information related to Bobby on a coming episode. One of the common comments from followers is, just when I thought it couldn't get any crazier, and when I thought I had heard it all, you'd drop something else on us. And I suppose my reputation precedes me. So how about a little bomb drop now? As of the production of this podcast, Rachel, who is separated from Mark but not divorced, has asked for child support. And Mark has asked for DNA on all 3 minor children that Rachel absconded from the marital home with. Getting the court to grant him that would be prudent for many reasons. When Rachel and I reconnected in 2012, she indicated to me that one of her daughters was not Mark's. No, this daughter was a product of a vicious sexual assault. I was of the belief that Mark knew this. Rachel and I talked about it, but I was wrong. Rachel told me that she and Mark had one of those nights, and what Rachel would refer to as one of those fights. Rachel left. She drove to a bar by herself, had some drinks, fended off some advances from men at the bar, and then on her way out the door, things went bad. a man from inside the bar who had been rejected, wasn't going to take no for an answer. This story was one of the first big lies from Rachel. It seemed to me that this enormous and tremendously heavy revelation was important for Rachel to share with me, and I was glad that she was comfortable sharing. She claimed at the time that she wanted to be honest with me about what happened to her over the years between our initial meeting in 2001 and 2012. Of course, I believed the story. Why would someone lie about something as heinous as sexual assault? Certainly at that point, I had no reason to suspect that she was lying. She began painting this picture of a woman broken, betrayed by fate, a woman carrying a burden that no one should bear. I obviously saw what Rachel wanted me to see. Now, that picture she painted of Mark through this one story and over the coming years drove my hatred for him. She claimed that he punished her for her recklessness that night and for leaving the home, for getting drunk and allowing this attack to happen. Can you imagine being attacked like that and then being shamed by your husband? This was like so many other stories, just a part of her carefully constructed mythology, one that was designed not to share her truth, but to control my understanding of her truth and her background. Painting herself as the victim early on with me. It's just another twist on reality, I suppose. Now, regarding this daughter, I believe that Mark knew the truth, that he knew that this daughter, the one that he had raised as his own, the young woman he loved and still loves so much, that she was the product of another man, a monster from Rachel's tragic narrative. But as it always does, the truth comes out, and the question still haunts me. Why? Why would she tell me something as devastating as this kind of secret, and would she not tell the man who deserved to know, and Mark? March of 2024, Mark called me one night, just before Rachel left the home to leave for good. And he asked me if I knew about this daughter, who the father was. I was stunned. I was caught way off guard. Mark had just learned 17 years later that this daughter was not his. And I said, yeah, I have some information. And I shared the story that I knew. He said, well, part of that's true. I know she's not mine. But the story about assault is just another lie. He told me that he knows who the father is. And it was Rachel's own sister that had tipped him off to the identity of this man Rachel had an affair with back in 2006, 2007. Mark took a picture of his daughter and put it right next to a picture of the alleged father, put him in one of those collage apps, and the resemblance is uncanny. And I know who this man is. After Mark shared the story, I went to go track him down. He and Rachel met while she was a volunteer working for the Special Olympics in Santa Clarita in the mid-2000s. When I called him, I found out, much to my dismay, that my number had already been blocked. I sent him a message on LinkedIn. I was instantly blocked there. Sent him a message from another number. Rachel got to him. She gave him my number, and she told him to block me. She did this at the time she knew I was doing the podcast. She knew that I'd go looking for him. He was married. He still is married to the same woman, and they have children. I went looking for him in the same way that I did for Todd and for Bobby and for Brad and for her sister and everyone else I could find. Anyway, when I reached Brad, he told me that at the same time I had shared with Rachel that I was doing this podcast, that he too had received a Facebook friend request from Rachel, which he ignored. That was around the middle of January of 2024. She was reaching out to everyone in her past. She was running this crazy defense against me. Brad and I had an extensive conversation, a couple of them, and I'm hopeful that you'll hear him at some point. I spoke with you about the scam Rachel ran on her coworkers at the airline as well, at American Airlines. This was multi-layered. I want to talk about that rather complex situation at the San Luis Obispo County Airport. You remember she accused that male coworker, who will continue to remain nameless, of drugging and assaulting her. That story had to be recanted. She lied about having spent days in the hospital. One of her coworkers told me that when she spoke with Rachel while she was allegedly at the hospital, Rachel said,
"I would have slept with him anyway. He didn't need to drug me."
That coworker will end up on this podcast. Her coworkers were stunned by that story. Obviously, we know she was never in the hospital. Her follow-up to that, and I believe her way to recover from the awful lie and get the women at work back on her side, was to tell them that her daughter, the same one that is allegedly not Mark's daughter, had attempted to commit suicide. The coworkers learned at one point that they had been duped too, and they, like me, had been sucked into this thing hook, line, and sinker. At one point, after they learned about the cancer scam and the original version of this podcast, they met with Mark, and they learned more about the situation. They learned the truth. In that meeting, it was, as you can probably imagine, an emotional one. Mark showed them recent pictures of this daughter that they thought they were doing things to support, including one that was taken just the week before at her prom. The girls were destroyed. They'd been sucked in, and they also wanted to talk to me. They had questions, and I had answers. The proof, the receipts. The beginning of that series of conversations was rough. They doubted me at every turn, and then I shared everything with them that they wanted. Pictures, ultrasounds, Rachel in the hospital, notes, messages, pictures of she and I, my tattoo. They were done with her after those conversations with Mark and with me.
This new year, why not let Audible expand your life by listening? Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. Tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading professionals and experts on better health, relationships, career, finance, investing, and more. Maybe you want to kick a bad habit or start a good one. If you're interested in learning how to master your emotions and hearing scientifically backed advice for using your emotions as a tool, may I suggest Shift by psychologist and bestseller author Dr. Ethan Kross? Trust me, listening on Audible can help you reach the goals you set for yourself. Start listening today when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Something that you might find interesting is that one of the common tricks of the trade with airport workers, baggage handlers, gate agents, flight attendants, they all swap shifts. It's gotten so bad for Rachel and Russ that no one will swap shifts with them. When Russ and Rachel went to Paris on their anniversary trip, Russ had to pay people to take their shifts. Can you imagine this? I mean, I say this half kidding, half serious, but what sort of an asshole do you have to be where you have to pay people to take your shift when trading shifts is part of the game? No one at the airport that they work with respects them. And I mean no one. Mark had a court case with Rachel at one point over the summer. I touched on it, summer of 2024. I ended up being summoned to testify in that matter. Now, while I will not discuss particulars of that case, I'll share with you why I was involved. I had information that refuted information that Rachel was using to keep Mark from her children, from their children. And when I found out about the case, I let Mark know what I was sitting on. He put me in touch with his lawyer, and from there, it was on. Rachel had accused Mark of sending her messages that she should self-harm. He was basically telling her to end her own life. I saw some of those messages and the evidence that Rachel submitted to the court, and what I saw shocked me. If they came from Mark, it was awful. Now, the messages that Rachel submitted to the court show a phone number that was not Mark's. This phone number had a 714 area code. Mark had a phone number with an 805 area code. While I was reading the evidence, I grabbed my phone and started looking through my text messages. I did it for a reason. What caught my attention was that in May of 2024, as the dust had settled, one night I sent Rachel a picture of myself with the message, "I would have given up my life for yours." And I almost did. But you could never tell the truth, and now everything has gone to hell. Literally. This was at 9 p.m. on May 27th. When I woke the next morning, I saw that I received a text message from a number I didn't recognize, a number with a 714 area code. That message said,
"And I would have given up my life for you."
It was Rachel. And when I compared the numbers to the text messages that Rachel said she was receiving, they were nearly identical. Could Rachel have been callous enough to have used a burner app and to have gotten herself set up with a couple of numbers, a couple digits off from each other? The answer to that was a resounding yes. I showed up at court. I testified. It was the first time I had seen Rachel since May 5th of 2022, when she left the Hotel Santa Barbara to head to Templeton Hospital for the alleged first chemotherapy treatment. When I walked into the court, Rachel turned away. She couldn't look at me. She never made eye contact. I was asked a series of questions by her legal aid attorney, including the nature of my relationship with Rachel. And I explained that we had been engaged, that I knew her going back to 2001. I was prepared and ready to go leading up to this. Agent Grasso called me and said, "Listen, I need to go on record with you that I'm against you going. Testify via Zoom. Don't do this. You'll have another opportunity to see her in an orange jumpsuit on another day. I don't want to collect call from the San Luis Obispo County Detention Center from you." He and we shared a laugh, as we often do, and I told him I was in check. And I appreciated the words, but I was going. I was prepared to share my story, all of it, and to discuss the evidence I had. But as it would turn out, because of how Rachel and Mark had been to each other, how toxic the two of them were, the judge really had it. She wasn't fazed by what I provided. I left stunned. It was as if I had no bearing at all on what Rachel was accusing Mark of. And clearly I had evidence that showed she was lying. The judge accepted Rachel's bullshit. Rachel denied having anything to do with that number or sending me any texts. As a matter of fact, she testified that
I didn't have any sort of meaningful relationship with him at all.
Rachel committed perjury in court. She lied her ass off. Once again, she skated. How is it possible that even judges, a judge like Judge Duffy in the Paso Robles family court, actually believed her lies? I watched it happen right in front of my eyes, and I couldn't fucking believe it. After the girls at work found out who Rachel really was, a few of them agreed to testify to Rachel's character, her lies, her ability to manipulate, lies about being a pilot and a nurse, helicopter pilot, the alleged self-harm of daughter number 2. Rachel may not even know, even now, that Mark met with them or that they spoke with me. But one thing that the girls did do was they questioned her about being a pilot for Mercy Air and a trauma nurse. Mark obviously gave the girls the cold hard truth. At one point, Rachel sent her fake pilot's license and her nursing license to one of the girls that questioned her. And she said,
"Here are my license and my pilot certificate. I don't feel the need to defend myself to you or anyone at our station beyond this. I'm not a liar."
As the court date with Mark grew closer, Rachel saw her coworkers' names on the witness list. She, always the victim, needed to get ahead of this. She went to American Airlines, to management there, to her supervisor, Bo. She told Bo and others that she was the victim of bullying. Not normal bullying, but bullying by exclusion. She was crafty on this one. The girls never really spoke to her about what Mark said or what I told them. They just avoided her, like the plague. They ignored her. She would use that to her advantage. And guess what? Bo and the American Airlines corporate staff protected her. And they're still protecting her. I took that pilot certificate and I turned her into the FAA and the TSA, American Airlines, and Piedmont Air, along with Homeland Security. That station at the San Luis Obispo Airport is operated through a partnership with American and Piedmont Air. That's why Piedmont was included. I sent a detailed email to Robert Isom, who's the CEO of American Airlines, and his entire management team received a copy of my complaint to the FAA, and that email I sent to him. I have the read receipts, including the one from Mr. Isom. The same document was sent to management at Piedmont Air. I thought, surely, the falsification of a piece of federal identification, a pilot certificate with the FAA and TSA watermark, would be an attention getter for one or both airlines or the FAA or the TSA. But guess what? The scammer skated yet again. There was no legal basis for the FAA, the TSA, or the California Board of Nursing to intervene. I wrote to them about the fake nursing license. I even found the nurse it belonged to. I was told that the airline thought it was more important to protect the victim of bullying, and since she hadn't boarded a plane or attempted to fly it, they would do nothing. The FAA had a similar response. I heard from an investigator immediately with a series of questions, and then he just disappeared. I did find that woman who the nursing license belongs to. We had a couple of conversations, and she told me that she was going to file a complaint, but there's not much we can do. Much like a pilot certificate, if a nursing license hasn't been used to treat a patient, it's bunk. It's nothing. It's worthless. The Board of Nursing did nothing. Regarding Mercy Air, I did send them the same detailed email that I sent to American and Piedmont to the FAA. They responded to me and let me know that Rachel does not now, nor has she ever worked for them. And as I told you last season, they saw fit to have someone from their legal department call me and ask me some questions and do a follow-up, but nothing ever came out of that either. They merely confirmed what I already knew. Now, for the record, Mercy operates in SLO County out of the Paso Robles Airport, where Rachel is now working part-time in a second job, in addition to working at American. I should say she was working at the Paso Airport for Lloyd's Aviation. They're based in Bakersfield. They operate out of Paso and several other airports regionally. She'd been working there from September until the beginning of the year. After she took that job, she called in a half a dozen times. Now, she is not what we would refer to as a model employee, but like a lot of companies in this day and age, they're desperate for help. They kept her on. Here's a story that you might enjoy about that new job and one of Rachel's instances of calling out. In October, Rachel and Russ took a trip to celebrate their anniversary, and they went to Paris. When they came back, Rachel was due to work for Lloyd's the next day, but she called in sick.
On the flight home from Paris, one of my fallopian tubes ruptured, and I can't make it in to work today.
Now that is a potentially life-threatening situation. If it were to actually have happened on a plane, it would be considered a medical emergency, and the plane would have been diverted, forced to land. Now, luckily for Rachel, she's a trauma nurse, he said, completely sarcastically. Now, if there's any part of that story that's true, and she did get pregnant and have some sort of issue, it means that Rachel is now cheating on Russ. And I know that because a friend of Russ confirmed with me that Russ had a vasectomy years ago, after the birth of his daughter. Did Rachel fake yet another pregnancy? Did she do it with Russ? I don't know. She needs to be in control of every narrative in her life, especially the ones that might reveal who she really is. Her lies are not impulsive. nor are they careless. They're calculated, they're deliberate, and they're self-serving. She didn't just lie to cover up mistakes or avoid consequences. She lied to craft an identity that serves her ever-changing needs and her narrative, whatever that may be at the time. One thing that terrifies someone like Rachel more than anything: being exposed. She can't have someone in her life who knows her deepest and darkest truths. To her, those truths are weapons that could be used against her, and she'll do everything in her power to eliminate that threat. People who come too close to the truth aren't just inconvenient. They're dangerous to her survival. And in Rachel's world, survival means maintaining her lies at any cost. If you get too close, Rachel will either push you away or destroy you. When someone starts to question her stories or poke holes in her lies, she doesn't apologize or come clean. Instead, she attacks. She deflects. She plays the victim and places the blame on every person who questions her. It's a classic tactic of someone with narcissistic tendencies. The problem is always someone else. To further illustrate that point, when the social media was created for this podcast, her boyfriend Russ and a couple of her daughters began to tell people that I was being paid by Mark to share my story. She claimed that none of it was true. I have a text message that she sent to one of her coworkers at American Airlines. And that message, in Rachel's own words, said the following:
I have no idea who this person is who is doing this podcast. Its stories, so outlandish that they have caused me to lose relationships with my own family. My daughter thinks that Mark is paying this man to share a made-up story.
Another crazy story. At around the same time, people at the airport, some of whom don't even work for American, but work for different airlines that were communicating with me, told me that she and Russ were taking some vacation in Colorado, where they were renting a helicopter for Rachel to fly and do some helicopter camping excursion. Now, they did end up going to Colorado. There was a trip for softball for her softball playing daughter. They rented a car. A far cry from being a helicopter camping explorer. Rachel had Russ drinking the Kool-Aid, aiding and abetting a liar and our future felon. Russ was sharing that story all over the airport, not just to his coworkers at American, but with others as well. What makes this so insidious isn't just the lies. It's the way that she used those lies to manipulate everyone around her. And when I started to question her or doubt parts of her story, she turned the blame on me. She would say things like,
It sounds like you don't trust me. And if you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't be together.
She gaslit me into questioning my own reality. If details didn't add up, it wasn't because she was lying. It was, of course, because I was being paranoid. When I grew despondent under the weight of her supposed illness, she'd ask me for videos and photos of myself, saying they helped her feel connected to me. She knew I was suffering, and instead of easing my pain, she used it to keep me tethered to her. This was the role she was made to play. The ultimate victim, a woman battling a terminal illness with grace and bravery. A woman who dealt with the constant unwanted advances of men and so much more. The narcissist needs to be the captain of the ship, dictating the narrative and deciding who gets to be part of the story and who doesn't. Rachel's behavior towards Madison is a prime example. Madison discovered the truth about her mother's cheating and shared it with family members. And instead of taking responsibility, Rachel lashed out. She blamed Madison for the family's problems. That's how quickly Rachel's willing to cut someone out. After the podcast came out and it was clear that Madison was trying to support her father, Rachel actually shut Madison's cell phone off and then stopped paying for college. She blocked Madison's new number from her other daughters. She made sure that they couldn't communicate with each other. That is what they call parental alienation. The play is simple. Control the narrative, control communication. In martial arts, we have a saying, control the head, control the body. Rachel couldn't handle the truth coming to light. She painted herself as the victim and cast Madison, her own flesh and blood, as the villain. This is the same pattern we've seen throughout her life. Anyone that gets too close to the truth is labeled a problem. They have turned against her. When Todd found out about her cheating and the lies about trafficking and getting beaten up and the naked pictures for men's magazines and prostitution, he went to her with all the evidence he had, and he told her that if she just came clean, they could work through it. And you know what she said to him? She said,
"Fuck you. Who do you think you are to dig into my life?"
Imagine your husband or wife saying that to you after you caught him cheating. What would you do? Well, I'll tell you what Todd did. He moved out the next day, put the house up for sale, and filed for divorce. When someone who's married cheats, they aren't just cheating on their spouse. They're cheating on their entire family. We know her game is to do what she does for attention. Rachel's con wasn't about money. It wasn't about greed in the traditional sense. After everything came out, Mark sent me a screenshot of a text that Rachel had sent him. And that text said,
"Forgive me, please. I was a horrible person. I faked cancer to Harry to get attention. But I'm not that person anymore."
Wait, you're not that person anymore? Rachel, you've been faking everything your entire life. It's who you are. By the way, that text that she sent was sent to him within 90 days after her cancer scam was exposed to him and to all 4 of his girls, and right after her relationship with Russ was exposed. So magically, in 90 days, she's all fixed up just like that? This calculated campaign of emotional terrorism with me and every other Mark, no pun intended, it was truly next level. She didn't just betray those around her. With most of them, she did her best to destroy them. With Todd, she said, "Fuck you," after he found out. Todd said it was like a lightning strike. It was quick, and it came out of nowhere. By the way, that message from Rachel to Mark, it wasn't just about faking cancer with me for attention. It also mentioned 4 other men, including a man named Brian. Do me a favor and remember that name, Brian. Coming up on the next episode of The Messenger, the Rachel cancer scam, you'll hear from the daughter formerly known as Madison, in her own words, in a special 2-part episode. Next time on The Rachel Cancer Scam.